Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Shane Walsh Podcast. So, last time we spoke, I have just received a copy of the brand new book. So, this is going to be out in November. For those of you watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see the book that I'm kind of lifting. It's a bit mad holding the book in my hands and kind of scrolling through the pages and stuff like that. So, keep an eye out on your feed, on your Instagram, on your emails, if you're on the email list, in order to how to get a copy. So the book is Break Free, 7 Proven Strategies to End Yo-Yo Dieting and Keep the Weight Off Forever. So the short-term version is Break Free. So if you're someone who's 5 to 20 pounds, you're losing that over and over again, and you're feeling out of control, and I have 7 strategies that I use with all my clients. And some will use some of them, some will use other ones, but they've all used them, some of them at some stage. And the big thing in this is there's real life client stories involved in the book. And it shows you how I've worked it through with clients. I've obviously changed the clients' names, how I've worked it through with the clients and what the outcome at the end is. But it's still a bit weird. It's still very, very weird. So yeah, it's a little bit weird. So keep an eye out on your feed for how to get your copy of this. It'll be out in November. And the reason for November is generally having a kind of a health and fitness book during the summer is a pretty bad idea. So that's the main reason for that. So today's episode of the podcast is why calorie counting is the wrong goal if you're looking for control. Okay, so when I talk to someone at the beginning, I always ask themselves the question. Sometimes they're a bit shocked by it. I know I had one of the clients on the podcast and she spoke about, she was a bit shocked when I asked, do you want to count calories or do you not want to count calories? And when someone tells me that they want to get control of their eating, they want to feel in control by calorie counting, the first tool that they'll reach for is the apps. It makes sense. Don't get me wrong. Numbers in, numbers out, structure, discipline, comfort, whatever it might be, your control. And I want to make the case for a huge number of people, calorie counting doesn't create control. And I will argue that till the cows come home. It's perceived control. It's a symptom of it being out of control. And normally makes someone with a disordered eating pattern, which is overeating, binge restrict, skipping meals, intermittent fasting, binging, 1,200 calories. It normally makes the underlying problem a hell of a lot worse, not a hell of a lot better. And if you're a coach listening to this, I want you to talk about if it's the only tool that you have in your toolkit. So I want you to get into it. So why is calorie counting an awful idea if it's used for control? And what a lot of people do and what a lot of people don't do is they don't say it out loud because calorie counting feels like control because it gives you a number to stare at. It gives you a dopamine hit if you kick it, if you reach it. But a number on an app is not the same as control of your actual behavior around food, undereating, overeating. And the number one red flag around that is, are you tracking everything, number one, or are you tracking only when you are in inverted commas being good and leaving things out when you feel you've gone off plan? And number 3 is it heightening your perfection? AKA, are you panicking every time you're going out for a meal and then you struggle to create routine and get back into routine afterwards and you press the fuck up button? There's 3 red flags that calorie counting is not going to solve. And think about who actually reaches for calorie counting. It's rarely the person who's calm and regulated around food. And unfortunately, those who are calm and regulated around food is becoming few and far between. And what I mean by that is there's apps galore right now, people scanning foods, looking at the traffic light system, red v bad, green equals good, people scared of ingredients in foods. And those who are reaching for calorie counting is really the person who's kind of regulated around food, not emotionally eating all the time. It's usually someone who feels like food has the upper hand and they feel like jumping on a spreadsheet will finally win that fight for them and that mental battle and start them doing the mental gymnastics. But calorie counting doesn't address why someone feels out of control. It doesn't address why someone is leaning on food, why someone is not prioritizing themselves, why someone is procrastinating, why someone is self-sabotaging, why someone is overeating. And it's not a willpower or discipline issue, but it just adds a layer of surveillance to the top of chaos. This is essentially what calorie counting does. And you can hit your number for the day and still have skip breakfast in order to save calories for later. That's about as useful as a knitted condom, that idea. You could be white knuckling through 6 p.m. and binge because you're starving all day because you've skipped loads of meals. You can feel guilty and shame or anxious after you go out for a meal with your kids and have an ice cream. And you could have no idea what a normal portion of a meal looks like and feels like anymore. You learned it from somewhere. As what I mean by that is you used to know how to eat at some stage in your life, being a kid, and somewhere along the lines, overwhelm, information overload, rules, restriction, all these kind of comes on. And this number goes green. The relationship with food is still on fire. It's a dumpster fire for a lot of us, unfortunately. And the deeper problem is calorie counting trains people how to outsource their hunger and fullness cues instead of actually learning how to listen to their own body and listen to what they need. Over time, that's not control. That's dependency on and outsourcing it. You've just traded I don't trust myself around food for I don't trust myself without an app. And for a lot of people, especially one with the history of disordered eating, binge eating, restriction, yo-yo dieting, calorie counting can feel really, it can kind of feed the exact patterns that you're trying to break. It's rigid. It's number obsessed. If you're, I'm not hungry, but I've got 200 calories left for the rest of the day and it causes you to overeat, that's not really what the app is for. The app is a great tool for awareness. It's a great tool for education, but it's not going to give you control. The app rewards restriction and treats hunger as the problem to manage rather than the signal to respond to. And why it seems like a good idea is because why is it everyone's first move? Because it feels like we're doing something productive. We have a clear, measurable action and it's something to point to and why I'm doing something about losing weight, etc. It's the illusion of control in a situation that feels really emotionally messy and hard to pin down. And when someone feels really chaotic around food, the instinct is to reach for the most, I would say, most quantifiable system available. And calorie counting is that system. It's simple to explain. And it's simple to explain that there are 1,000 apps for this. And critically, it doesn't require anyone to sit with the harder question of why food feels like it's something out of control in the first place. It gives you numbers and gives that perceived control of, if I eat this many calories, I'm never going to overeat ever again. That's not realistic. It's also just the default because that's what a lot of people are pushing on people. That's what a lot of coaches are pushing on people. It's the first thing that most people are told when they want to change their eating habits or when they want to lose weight. You have to calorie count. If you don't want to count calorie count, you don't want it enough. And that's not helpful. That's panic. That's pushing on. So it feels like it's the obvious. It's the responsible starting point. And nobody's reckless by suggesting it. And it seems to be the cultural norm or the cultural sanctioned answer. And the problem is reaching for the most measurable tool isn't the same as reaching for the right tool. You wouldn't fix a window with a hammer. And you wouldn't fix emotional eating, disordered eating, restriction with calorie counting. Exact same thing. So how do we do this? And this is always the next question when it's the right one. Because if calorie counting is not the right answer for you, which is not an ability issue, it's just giving you feedback, then what? The honest answer is control doesn't come from restriction or precision. It comes from understanding what you need, structure, and routine. And that means eating regular meals across the day. So you're not starving in the evenings, which leads to overeating. Most people undereat during the day because they're doing everything for everyone else. They have no structure. They haven't got a shop in, whatever it might be. And then they wonder why their head's in the cupboard like the Cookie Monster. Having a rough plan, knowing kind of roughly what it's not Tupperware Mary down the road. It's having a rough plan of, okay, what am I going to be having for breakfast? It could be the same breakfast each day just to kind of take your energy out of it. What's your lunch? Most people skip lunch, or most people are trying intermittent fasting, which seems to be the new craze that's kind of coming back. But if intermittent fasting is causing you to overeat, it's the wrong tool. But you'll blame yourself for not being able to stick to it, lack of discipline, lack of willpower. So prioritizing yourself to eat enough. A lot of people are afraid to eat more because they feel it's going to gain weight. But the reason why people overeat a lot of the time is because they don't eat enough during the day. And then they go into, I'm going to say, well, my calories for later in the evening. And then they wonder why they're the Cookie Monster. And they go into, I deserve this mode, which is revenge time procrastination. It's the only outlet for them to get through the day, which isn't a dig. But if you're listening to this This is why things are happening the way they are. It's learning how to build some meals that are nourishing for yourself rather than the lowest calorie option or a fake away. Real control looks like, I know roughly what I'm going to eat next. I'm going to eat regularly. I'm going to nourish myself. And I'm not going to be worried about if I gain weight or lose weight. One builds trust with your body. The other builds a war with it. And this is slower to explain than just log your food. It's less satisfying. There's less dopamine seeking. There's no single number to hit. There's no arbitrary number. And that's what freaks people out. There's no set of rules. It's too free. It's too free-spirited. But it's the version that actually holds up over time. Because addressing that kind of actual mechanism, that chaotic, inconsistent eating, instead of layering it with another tracking system instead of chaos, on top of chaos, is going to create more chaos like the Tasmanian devil. What I firmly believe there is a gap in coaching right now. If calorie counting is the only tool you have for helping someone with their eating, I want that to hit home for a little bit. Now, there are coaches who are working with bodybuilders, all this kind of stuff. But because a large number of the people who come from me for help have a complicated relationship with food, have yo-yo dieted for years, have no problem losing the weight, it's keeping the weight off, which is success, which is keeping the weight off. A lot of coaches will just go, here's a calorie number, off you trot. And if you only have one lever to pull, that's the only lever that the client will know how to pull. And what happens when they check out of that process? They're going to hit the same wall. Client after client, same friction. The same rebound, the same spiral. And it's going to look like failure every single time, and feel like failure for that individual. That's not a knock on any individual coach that's out there. It's a great awareness tool and a great education tool. But if someone's made to feel like they don't want it enough, or it's a lack of willpower, a lack of discipline, and it's not shiny object enough, because I know I've had calls with people who are looking for coaching, and when we kind of talk about, I kind of say to them, do you want to count calories or not? And I explain to them, but the fear of not counting calories scares the living bejesus out of them. And it's harder to explain because there's less boundaries, there's less rules to them. And I would say 80% of those who may not sign up at the beginning when I talk about maybe not counting calories, and a lot of the time I'll just go with what they want to do and try to ease out of it, 80% of those tend to reach out to me after about 8 weeks later, 6 to 8 weeks later, looking for coaching. Because they've realized that that's what the method is. That's what they need help with. The gap isn't you don't know what to do. It's we are struggling to create structure. We're so used to restriction. We don't know about our hunger or fullness cues. It's not about never overeating or never undereating. It's a macro split is not going to solve anyone's relationship with food. And not knowing when to say to the coach, no, this isn't for me, is a big thing as well. So it's on both sides. But a lot of people don't know any different because that's all they've been told. So how to navigate this? We need to create a pattern. Regular meals, 3 meals and a couple of snacks is a really, really solid framework. If you're skipping meals, creating routine is number one. That will help to reduce the overeating and the noise. As a byproduct, that will tend to reduce the eating habits that are happening. As a byproduct, that will help you to feel calmer. As a byproduct, that will help you to feel in control. As a byproduct, that will help to move the needle in the clothes. If we are constantly talking about good or bad foods, that's a signal that macros and calorie counting cannot solve. It's a relationship with food issue. We need to build a skill within people, and people need to learn how to learn how to eat. The goal isn't just here's your calorie counter, off you trot. My goal as a coach is someone to leave the coaching know how to fuel their body, listen to their body. And there are clients here of mine who calorie count, and they do great with it. But there are also clients of mine who are trying to ease out of it, and there are clients of mine who haven't never counted a calorie. So it's a wide, broad spectrum. And what out of control with food looks like, and why calorie counting will not solve it, is restriction. If you're eating 1,200 calories, you're going to crash hard and fast. You've no plan. MyFitnessPal can create the structure, or you create the structure in the app. but it's not going to give you control. You create the structure. And then sometimes that realization that it's on you scares the living bejesus out of people. A lot of people don't eat regularly enough. I genuinely believe that most people have an undernourishing problem when it comes to food rather than an overeating problem. Apart from those with the higher hunger hormones. A lot of people, particularly moms and parents, they're last in the totem pole. So everyone else gets put first and they're last on the list. They're short on energy. They're doing your best. I genuinely, it's not a dig, but everyone else is put first. So no wonder we get put down last in the totem pole and then we're starving before the end of the day. We skip meals like a full-time job. Skipping meals is going to create out of control. It's going to create emotional hunger. 1,200 calories is what a 4-year-old girl needs. And most people I work with, not going to say 100% of the people I work with are not 4-year-old girls. None of this is a discipline problem at all. It's a structure problem. Calorie counting will not work for most of us if we have a disordered eating pattern, because it creates more chaos. And restriction and chaos eventually breaks the chain. It's not a character flaw, but it can feel like it. Real control isn't white knuckling. Real control isn't saving calories. Real control isn't banking calories. Real control isn't freaking out every time you go out for a few drinks or a hen. Real control isn't white knuckling. Real control isn't not ever having sugar or chocolate or fats or carbs, whatever it might be. So if you take one thing from this episode, control isn't coming from counting calories or counting calories harder or dieting harder. It comes from nourishing yourself, eating enough, eating regularly, and building trust with your own hunger again. There's tolerable hunger and there's real hunger. If real hunger will come on slowly, emotional hunger comes on quite fast. And if you're someone who's calorie counting and it's the only lever you know how to pull, it's worth learning that we need to get you away from it in order to help. So if you are interested in getting away from it or working with me on a one-to-one basis and learn some of the tips in this book, pop us a DM, click on the link in the show notes to book a welcome call, a free welcome call, and let us know. But before you go, subscribe to the podcast on YouTube. Let me know if you have any queries or questions. That's it for today. So thank you so much for listening.